This is going to be a brief, at least I think it's going to be brief, but kind of interesting video to make. Bob McNulty, the CEO of Tryp, whether you spell it as TRYP or TRIP, I prefer the former, even though I know there were some legal problems with that, is dead. I believe he was 75 years old. Cause of death, I'm frankly not sure. I heard about this news story a few days ago. I don't really see a whole lot of Uber tubers talking about it, except maybe the rideshare professor. And I think there's a few reasons for that. The most obvious one is that nothing really became of Tryp. Tryp came in, made a lot of noise that they were going to shake up the rideshare industry, and then ultimately didn't go anywhere. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Now, I am not going to outright say that Tryp is or was a scam. All I'm going to say is that basically every promise that was made to customers, whether they be riders or drivers, by Tryp management, ultimately were unfulfilled. And this is a company that has so far written checks that they are unable to cash. Now then, at the centerpiece of all of this company and the company shenanigans was Bob McNulty. Now, Bob was almost kind of an a polarizing and confusing figure in this. Sorry, my stutter is preventing me from saying that word with the E. He was the face of the company. He was the CEO, and he definitely talked a big game. Hey, James. However, he was also very private. He, was asked by multiple UberTuber channels to come onto the channel and talk about Tryp. He basically did not do that for the most part. He would send other Tryp workers like Taha Abashi to join an interview with people like me, with Mark, with I think Dustin at one point. And he would normally not do that. Now, why he didn't want to do it himself, I'll kind of leave for you to decide. I know there's things that you probably want me to say about him, but I'm gonna. I always feel like when someone passes, you afford them just a little bit of respect, even if you disagreed with them. So I'm going to refrain from making bold statements. I think one of the reasons I wanted to hold off on making this video for a few days is I kind of want to reflect because last year he actually did come on my channel. Things had gotten to Tryp to a point. There was a lawsuit with Tryp again between him and former employers, and I had those employers on my channel and I talked to them. And well, he wanted to share his side of the story, and I gave him a chance to do that. Now, some people feel that interview was not great. They wanted, I don't know, maybe they wanted a beat down or something. Maybe they had been personally harmed by Tryp. And I can understand your frustration if you were, harmed by Tryp. But, I'm not into the whole beat down interview process. I think you make much better points by talking to them. I think, so me and him had a conversation. And, he had answers for almost everything. I didn't agree with those answers. At the end of the day, I thanked him for his time, said, I'd like to do this again in a year. See if some of these wild claims that we're going to be up and running and we're going to have like a delivery service, if they will be, if they will have actually form some ground. Now he said he was willing to do that again. I don't know how serious he was about that, but obviously that's not going to happen anymore. McNulty is no longer with us. Now, what does this leave of Tryp? Frankly, I don't think it leaves the company in any better or worse a position. The company was never able to get off the ground. It never was. It did not actually fulfill any of the promises it made, to my knowledge. There are still a lot of people who are out a couple $1,000s. They will probably always be out that couple $1,000s. I don't know where this leaves Taha Abbasi's lawsuit against him. I would assume, personally, that there's probably not much of a reason to continue that lawsuit. I'll let him decide that, though. And I think at the end of the day, Tryp was basically an idea. It was maybe, who knows if it was a good idea or not, but it was an idea that there could be an alternative to Uber and Lyft, that there could be a different sort of payment method. Hey, Mike, how you doing? And it's like many other alternate rideshare ideas, it did not come to fruition. And whether it was because of Bob McNulty personally or just an overall terrible business model, again, you can speculate. I've got my thoughts. I always warn people not to put any money into this company that you weren't willing to lose. I mean, basically approach it with a gambling model. Yeah, maybe Tryp will catch on and maybe you'll get all of this money, but maybe you won't. And for a lot of people, virtually everyone, I would think, that was basically a no. So it's kind of a strange end to the Tryp saga. I covered it when it was coming up. I was cautiously optimistic for a little while. It never really produced any fruit. Now the founder is gone. So any wrongs he might have wronged with people who paid for a Tryp service or who worked for Tryp, I'm basically going to leave that for the lawyers to decide what restitutions should be paid to those people. He leaves behind his wife Amy, children Remy, Rhett, and Clark, grandson Jordan, sisters Barbara Blickensdorfer and Carol Manette, and 2 poodles, Lucy, In, and Chance. He was preceded in death by son Kirk, so I assume that means he had a son named Kirk, who also passed away. And 75's a good age. He lived a long life. Whether he used it wisely or not, again, I will leave for you to decide. I will say that even though I was never a fan of the Tryp model, and even though I felt that his salesman tactics were not great, to be honest, I definitely think he was selling something that he didn't really have. He was pleasant to me. He did agree to come to the channel. He opened himself up to some questions that were not exactly comfortable. Again, I know people wanted that interview to be like a real beatdown, but that wasn't the point. I prefer talking to people, and as far as a conversation went, he was very pleasant and very polite. Now I am very curious what a follow-up interview would have looked like, because Tryp, again, never got off the ground. Would he still be using the same tactics? Would he still be trying? Would he finally admit that Tryp was a failure? I don't know. I don't know. And frankly, from my perspective, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. He's gone. I mean, I just hope that, again, for the people who feel that he might have stolen from them, that the lawyers figure that out and maybe get the restitutions that those people deserve. In the meantime, I think this is officially, Tryp is done. Tryp is done. It was probably never going to be anything more than just an idea in the first place. So, yep, there we go. A strange ending to the Tryp saga. So, for those of you out there with loved ones, give them a hug, tell them you love them, and stay safe out there.